G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff. Continuing on from the 5 questions women avoid about men's rights, today we're dealing with the family court system. Now the family court system is unconstitutional. It operates on a bias assumption, a series of biased assumptions. Now it's highly contested issue because, let's face it, when there was no vote, and as most fear, if you put it to the vote, almost every woman to the divided, but the majority of women are likely believed to vote for a family court system that would give them 100% custody, alimony, and many other benefits, as well as free housing, free healthcare. Just look at the politics today. There's a lot of fear that the majority of women do see the family courts don't go far enough in punishing the man. So research suggests that at all times the courts are supposed to be gender neutral, but fair and balanced in their approach. But many fathers point out that there's no equity in the outcome, that the people who demand equality and or equity do not seem to give any equal outcomes. There's no counter, there's no suggestion, right? You look at the studies, they show most of the time when women can get away with painting men as the bad guys, can make outrageous claims and receive, and while actively pursuing custody, they can and indeed often withhold the child, and unfortunately the outcomes show that high rates of sole custody are for women. Now, there are areas where fathers who have pursued custody are successful, but the reality is, no, the majority of children do not go to their father, or even the majority of the time their father gets to see or have quality time with their child. Another issue with family courts is parental alienation. There's almost nothing to stop women from doing it, and there's no punish or pushback, and children should and must take action against their parents for this. Otherwise, it will continue. This is one of those cases where it's the child who has to act, not the father. The father has no power. This is where the courts are in constitutional bias, right? They are in violation of the Constitution, and they have a stereotype violence. Many court judgments reflect these so-called traditional gender roles, where mothers are treated as caregivers. It's the only time women never complain about stereotypes, if you notice, whenever the system rules in their favour, in other words. Now, the primary caregiver premise is that the courts look at the stability of the child's life, not the attitudes or actions of the mother. The mother can be a prostitute and still able to raise children. Therefore, her sexual activities, her proclivities, or even her dangerous dating habits never seem to happen in court. But if you were a man who frequented prostitutes, absolutely they would be against you. This is often known as the caregiver paradox, where only the man's actions and activities are ever considered. However, statistically, while the outcome of primary caregiver is given to the mother, the actual best outcomes are when the child is given to the father. Why is that? Well, without stability in the home, it's not just the child who needs stability in the home, it's the mother. Society will not take into account women's mental health. And primarily, women overload faster than men. They can't keep up. They cannot hold down a job and a family and statistically maintain a happy home. Something always suffers. They will have to put the job first, then complain to the child and make them a latchkey kid and will never admit their wrongs, or they want to be a single mother on welfare, and that then drags down the system. They want more and more free stuff, and they'll vote for it, and women will say raise the taxes, thus taking more money off the productive, thus dragging down the economy. Because remember, GDP, right, it's dragged down, right? So there's less money in the system. And more they print money to cover these shortfalls in productivity, and increasingly put productivity burdens on men to work longer to meet demand. And therefore you have a never-ending, unsatisfied economy that is constantly out of whack. And of course, this is what the financiers want: constant borrowing by everyone. Okay, this is the corruption of the system. At the heart of the system are lawyers who lobby the government every day for their care. And the problem is sophistry, right? If you just tell the average person, oh, we're helping the women, there's no more explanation. They've shut off. They don't care what follows. And when you tell society you're going to help men, women shut down because it's not about them. So you're always facing systemic corruption, and that system is based on gender bias, right? And then if you don't, and it comes down to the boomer mentality: happy wife, happy life. So research suggests race, culture, and religion often play a huge part. Now, in some areas, there are fathers face even more authoritarianism than in the West. So it's not just the West where things suffer. There's a cultural, political, and even a racist bias where some countries, we won't name Malaysia, where they rule based on religion. So if you're not of the dominant religion, which is all migrants, but by the way, you know, if you want to know what happens when migrants outnumber the native population, look at Malaysia. It was Indians migrate there. They are predominantly Muslims, and they've taken over. Oh no, but we don't invade countries. We're not colonialists, right? Yeah. The hypocrisy in this world is phenomenal. And if America really was the world police, you could say, yeah, now all the problems have gone away. Except for the friendly countries, of course. But increasingly, the number of men slowly getting victories in court has actually been through a series of pushes by men's rights groups that have actually brought down closer to what you call equal co-parenting. The problem is mothers are still accused of manipulating children often grow up fearing the father. There's no system in place to deal with parental isolation or deal with the child who has systemic problems in school. Okay, just look at the number of prisoners. Who are the prisoners and where they come from? Single mother homes. The vast majority of crime may be committed by men, but they all come from single mother homes. And in some communities, whether it's racial, religious, or a stereotype of the predominant culture, you look at areas with high gang activity, for instance, single mothers and lost boys growing up to look and view at everything through the lens of abuse. And allegations of abuse are widespread, and if you look through the world, America is actually in the middle. Most of the, you go through from Asia, the Americas, then, except China. China is actually above America for violence now. It used to be way down, but China's 20% more violence in China than America now, when it used to be actually near the bottom. in the last couple of years, particularly violence and murders. London, higher than America, it used to be much lower. Mexico's way higher, but still, the top 25 other than are African states now. Some states, countries have fallen dramatically by jailing the offenders, but also it seems that the longer they keep bad boys in prison, the divorce rate starts to come down. I wonder if you take away all the bad boys, the this is the problem. I believe the system is based on high conflict, encourages conflict between families, because going in, women know there's no consequence, right? The most common complaints is the fact that women can lie without consequence. Next is the weekend only visitation, which does not allow for meaningful periphery. Unconscious bias of the system, that old school attitudes, particularly from left-wing judges and magistrates, is the mother's the primary caregiver, instead of realising, wait a minute, who's the real provider, right? And who is the stable parent? And of course, most of the courts are, most countries, particularly with where liberalism is most predominant, or communism, courts have a huge left-wing bias. So you understand, worldwide, most of the time. Now, in Australia and some parts of America, the debate still rages on, but there are many countries, where, like Japan, this is where Japan falls down, are completely open with their bias, where, at least in Australia and parts of America, are now starting to address that bias because they realise that they're not getting the outcomes they promised. And the outcomes they promised, and there's a strong number of groups now who believe that the leading cause of violence is depression and mental illness and false allegations, that men are driven, right, to violence by passive-aggressive women who just can't let it go. And this toll on men's mental health is because men, they're desperately in love with these women, or think they're desperately in love with these women, and the women take advantage of that and abuse them at every opportunity, and it creates a sanity break. And then women get the divorce they've been pushing for. That's, you don't realise it, right? Women always initiate the divorce, but when they decide to divorce you, they try to make you do it, like a cat who taps you on the shoulder, or I've seen it. Cats, lean on you, tap you on the shoulder, lean against you, or they tap you on the leg. No, when women do this, just like a cat, cat ain't asking for love. Cat ain't asking to be petted. That's your dismissal in their eyes. They're asking you to do something for them that they can't. Right? Sometimes with a cat, of course, it's simply, hey, I'm going to take a shit, let me out. Or some cats have learnt to go to the door or go to their bowl, right? With women, they won't tell you what they want because they know it's, oh, you might abuse me later and just assume I want sex. But sometimes it's sex, sometimes it's merely to get you to lean on them or to pet them, to praise them. It's often, same with cats, it's just an attention seek, and but never assume what they want. That's the problem. It's a never-ending battle, and that's why you have mental health issues, because women create them with their own manipulation. And these manipulations are learnt behaviour. They're not natural. Right? Naturally, people, when they want something, they ask for it or help themselves. Right? Women have, because they've broken the chain of education through the 50s, 60s and 70s, and through the 80s tried to indoctrinate a new form a new way. You hear it all the time. Oh, we need a new way of thinking. The old ways, they're always talking about the old ways. They never experienced the old ways. They don't know anything about the old ways, and they often lie about the old ways because what they really want is power for themselves. That's why they manipulate you all the time and manipulate your divorce, right? This is why they always manipulate the government into making sure you can't fight back and there's nothing you can do about their bad behaviour. They know they're in the wrong, but they don't care that they're in the wrong. And what is the leading cause of women being in the wrong? Now, this is not the majority of women, or the majority. This is not just the majority of women. This is the majority of parents. They consciously view their children as their property, regardless of gender, regardless of some openly are possessive, treating children as extensions of themselves or dolls to show off. You see this in parents who drag their kids to their favourite sport or or fashion shows, often without consultation. Now, if the child shows interest, that's different. I'm talking about the parent who gets up in the morning, they take their 3-year-old or 6-year-old to or even a 9-year-old. After that time, there's definitely pushback. But up to about 9, children don't push back. They treat being dragged around as normal. So it's very hard with children to find out what they like, because if a parent says, I like chocolate, therefore you must like chocolate because you're my daughter, to a child that's normal until they grow up and get older and they'll never eat chocolate again. And this has happened. Often, this is why you see wild swings and mood swings between women today. It's because their mothers tried to live vicariously through them, particularly during the 80s and 90s with fashion shows or things that they didn't have as a child, like video games. Now, oddly enough, boys would bond with their fathers over video games, but girls seem to have a more individualistic autonomy sooner. This is because girls biologically mature faster, not mentally though. That's the difference. Mentally we're the same. It's just that women biologically, and yeah, boys are a doofus till about 20, but girls can be just equally as a doofus till 35. Boys in their 18s, well, they just suddenly snap into place and suddenly go, oh yeah, well, sometimes it's not 18, it's 18 to 25, it varies, depends on the stress. But boys can be a fully functional adult and be a farmer, be a man, be a productive worker. It's a matter of education and training. And the more you're possessive, the parent, the more immature the child, and that's delaying not just puberty, but delaying adulthood. And you see it more where they want to physically delay puberty blockers in particular. That's destroying the child's autonomy. The behavior is distorted. Parents have, of course, gets in a trans debate, nature versus nurture. You see this in drug cultures as well, where children are grown up to see drugs and homelessness as a normal and often become homeless themselves. So the more they're exposed to something, now this is the problem. The more you're exposed to negative consequences of society, doesn't go down. People don't solve problems. Problems go up. Why? Because it's exploitative. Anything that makes money becomes exploitative, and the government allows exploitation. It never prevents systemic failures. It encourages them passively by high taxes, leading to high rents, overdeveloping large properties, the lack of development of properties in the so-called environment. That's all property manipulation. I've seen this before. I've seen this for 20 years in real estate, where someone would come in and do a 3-stage development. They would never get past stage 1. As soon as everybody moved into stage 1, they'd fight to keep the view, and therefore you have all these half-empty fields and lots and whatever. And then after 10 years, they finally win in court and get stage 2, and the same all over again. Court battle after court battle. I've done a lot of research on this for previous topics and videos, and often it's the woman who wants to keep her view. Why do the court battles die after 10 years? Because they're finally sick of the view. They finally don't care. It's like a person living. It's like, think of the think of a holiday, your best holiday ever. Now, you may find this hard to imagine, but the people in Hollywood feel the same as the people in Inglewood or even further out on the edge of the California desert there. They're in an amazing view, which is ever decreasing, of course, as LA gets more and more built up. Less and less tourist attractions, less and less to do, right? As things close or studios close or backlots get turned into housing projects, all the uniqueness goes away because you're so blasé to it. You don't realize what an outsider would see unique and special and wonderful about your city. Same with Orange County getting rid of all the oranges. Why? Well, development, money, profit. And then all of a sudden all the big wineries are making more money and everybody else is sitting around going, now what do we do? Because, but wealth does not last. It's all fleeting. But we don't have that. We have a sense of ownership, but we don't have a sense of priority that goes with those ownership. So when you have a young child, you get blasé after the first couple of months to everything, every little achievement. So the child's attention factor goes down. And it's the same as you have multiple children. The attention factor goes down instead of being consistent. So you have inconsistent parenting, inconsistent mental health, inconsistent stability, instability in the home. And this occurs particularly with mothers who feel a sense of ownership to the child, and thus they want to protect the child and increasingly start to view men as suspicious and creepy, wanting to protect the child. There are so many things. But historically, children were treated as property, and in modern perspective, you have the emphasis on the child welfare, individuality, and legal rights, and often parents have failed to see their children as a potential adult because of the issue of abortion, where women want to be disconnected. My body, my choice. So instantly they see the child as a thing, not as a person. You have fathers who don't want the responsibility, so they're pro-abortion or pro-abandonment. And you have women who view children as a property, will abandon their child either to the state or a stranger. Again, there are many factors behind this, but it's all stemmed from the failure to treat the child as a separate individual with their own rights. And as we get older, we get more autonomy given to us, right? We start with zero autonomy and 100% need. As we grow up, we should be educated to reach autonomy. But because that's a right angle, no, the left want somewhere in here, in the middle, where you don't need constant supervision, but they can punish you, and they can check up on you from time to time and punish you and control and moderate your behaviour. So we have a perfect safe society, everyone. What's wrong with that? Well, it takes away the individual's choice. You narrow choices. You have people who say, we want freedom of choice, but no capitalism. So if you have, it's the same with sexual habits. It's the same with everything. If you don't moderate society, but because the left increasingly want everybody to love them, so you have a very unhealthy politic that is creating very unhealthy parenting, which in turn creates very unhealthy children, and the children, through damage to their psyche, repeat the patterns that were inflicted on them, even as they despise what was done to them. Now, you can often children believe they are owned in society because they are not treated as adults, and this is a problem. We should not treat a 15-year-old as an adult, a 16-year-old as an adult, a 17-year-old as an adult. What you have is a series of autonomies granted as you overcome basic hurdles. Right, potty training, dressing yourself, eventually leading up to feeding yourself, doing chores, and by 18, self-educating. You've got to prove after about 9, self-education. Get rid of the state system, too many teachers. This is why you have dependency in society. Too many teachers, so they have all these little children who are totally dependent on the teacher. The teacher is creating dependency all the time to feel this is the biggest failure in society. Teachers are the most predominant people who see children as property, but property of the state. And they are seen as instruments of the state. So I would say it's hard to say who does the most damage, but we can all agree this creates a mentality, particularly amongst women and women's groups and women's teachers, and that men have no rights, that you are a threat to the children. They see men as the only source of violence against children. They see men as the only source of violence against women. They see men as the only ones who commit crimes, whereas they see women as victims of society. Yes, I do not believe the majority of violence committed by men is natural. I believe it's a result of mental illness inflicted upon men, creating unstable men who can pretend to, because they've learnt from their wives, they've learnt from their mothers how to pretend everything's nice, everything's normal, while deep down they're unhappy. But you look at why women are happy. I'm not sexually satisfied. I want, and then when they go Bonnie Blue and have 580 men come in them, what happens? They're unhappy. And then they get the child. Then they get a child and they go, it's my child. So there is a systemic problem with mental health. Now, men's rights. Again, I think we need the concept of a universal brotherhood. And can we agree that they attacked the universal concepts of universal brotherhood and men's rights by creating the holiday camps of 1939 to 1945 and distorted history in order to justify their war, because deep down this was a group of selfish narcissists who got together and says, oh, we can't have Germany break off from the system. And whether or not Germany was right or wrong, that's not up to me or you to decide. History is already judged, and we can't change that judgment. It will always stand that the rest of the world considered whatever they did wrong and decided that their methods were too extreme, and instead of having a debate to bring... Because again, in Germany, in Russia, in most of Europe, there are no debates that bring us to the middle, back to the middle ground. No, the left believe they're absolutely right, absolutely 100% of the time, and the right are just stuck in trying to oppose this, and they can't get anything done because the system is constantly churning. Every time we get a victory, we lose the election, and the left bring in all the crazies again. It's never-ending drama. Why? Because women get bored. They can't have silence. Men can. We are the ones who have to bring stability to society. We are the ones who should only have the vote. We are the ones who should have the majority of jobs. Teachers, I can guarantee, teachers, nurses, and many other jobs, men would not want them and would be happy to have 100% women in the workplace if they were older mothers or women who can't have kids or women who've decided openly. But whether or not you believe that a chaste society with, now remember the deadly sins, right? The gluttony, greed, lust, these all things that are historically proven without a doubt outside of religion to cause the collapse of civilization. Lust, women, wrath, women. Every time you go through every sin, and when they're committed by women in large numbers, society collapses. Right? And you will before I go, I'll just quickly explain. The easiest one to study is actually the rise and fall of 1,600 years, the various dynasties of China, ending in 1959. Right? Chinese Revolution, majority women, a million women marched on Beijing. The Royal Guard laid down their arms because they would not fight women. And Mao and his army, 6 weeks later, marched in, and Ping Ping was arrested trying to flee. This is the problem with free speech, is the freedom to lie. They lied about the emperor. They lied about everything. But it took decades before the lies were all exposed. Mao was already dead. There's no consequence. Mao and his followers. Right now, in China, there's extreme violence. People are killing officials and descendants of the great leaders. Same in North Korea. Kim Il-jung and his family are isolated. They can't go out. They fear the military. They fear everything. They hope that their state apparatus will keep them in power. And the fear of losing power is the only thing that's keeping most officers in line. And a society based on fear, again, whether it's men or women, will collapse. Eventually the fear will break. You'll stop being afraid. And this is where you get the society revenge attacks. And you look at the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Russians said, hey, things are getting out of control. We have to stop. We have to give up. If we don't, society will tear itself apart. We can't go for another civil war. We're ready. We have not recovered from the last one. 100 and something years. It's not World War II that killed the majority of Russians. It was the Civil War, and everybody knows it. And Russia just won't face. Russia's sad. Look how sad. Now, Putin has brought a lot of happiness to Russia, which is why they like Putin, and nothing we say from the outside will change that, okay? Because they know everybody lies, okay? They don't trust anybody. They don't trust outsiders. I think every outsider's out to grift them. And this is what happens with women when they get so soaked in politics. It's the same in China. In China, so many people got traumatized by World War II. They believed it was a failure of the system, therefore the system had to be destroyed. And this is the same in the West. World War II was seen as a failure of diplomacy, and women... It's ironic, isn't it, that women want this revolution to stop wars, but they don't stop drama and conflict within their own lives. So you can actually understand, I hope, why mental illness, it needs to be addressed, but it's not properly being addressed because it's been addressed from the individual point of one personality, one dominant narcissistic personality, the liberal do-gooder, right, who can't see the different personality types, and men have different causes of different mental health. I think if we reduce the work hours, we reduce overproduction, we bring back higher quality goods, we outlaw food colouring and many other toxins in our society, we return to farming, we stop mass migration. I believe one of the biggest causes of crime is what's called locale displacement, where you're living in a society that does that. This is why freedom of movement internally in a country is important, not externally. Right? You should always only be a visitor to another country unless you get something like that island in the Caribbean that blew up in a volcano, or Pompeii. But even then, studies are showing people who are relocated within their region have better outcomes than people who are relocated to other countries. But liberals think they can cure everything because they're judging from the lens of one personality type and think, oh, well, if we just educate everyone, everyone will be the same. That is the fundamental cause of all problems. And the main problem is that they cause this mental illness where they stifle creative people with censorship or just squash them so that, look at Hollywood, how it squashes creatives outside the Hollywood system. They could spend $100 million to promote a shitty movie. Why? So that no one else can make movies and promote and take that space. That's why they crank out so many movies. That's why they crank out so many Star Wars movies, so no one else can create a better movie. There have been over a dozen movies with higher ratings than Star Wars, but they've never gotten sequels or never made the money they make because of mental illness. The addiction to, it's Star Wars, the trained narcissism in society to go, Star Wars is the pinnacle of science fiction. No, it's not. And I'm not saying my book is better or worse. I'm just saying critics have noted that there are better movies who have not made as much money because they don't get the higher release that Star Wars got. They don't get the higher advertising that Star Wars got. They don't get the cultural impact because they never make it to a wider audience. And then the wider audience rejects it anyway because it's boomer or many other reasons. Right? I think UFO is a far superior storyline and series to, and this is from way back, I forget exactly when it was made, but by British, but it never got a wide release, and now people are looking at it going, wow, this is way better than X-Files or anything, but a lot of things that came before, this is why retro is, and by allowing people, right, yes, we'll never get franchises that big again, but if we allow people to make the entertainment that fits their personality types, right, whether it's horror or whatever, you may not get huge franchises like the MCU anymore, but what you get is a better mental health outcome because people can now enjoy their entertainment instead of going to MCU movie after MCU movie and telling them going, this feels like homework. Why? Because they have no vested interest. They only went because they were told it was a cultural phenomenon and after a few movies they said, Iron Man was good, it was a good trilogy, but the rest of the movies, I don't see it. And that is the point. Once upon a time, when you were a Marvel comic fan, you had your favorites. You didn't have every Marvel comic, or except for a few. But these narrow-minded people, all they want is their empire. And it's the same with possessing children. They take that narcissism where they want to possess society. And hopefully you understand now why men's rights are so important and why discussions around men's rights are so important and why they create such divides in society. Because the system is imbalanced. It does not suit men. It does not suit many personalities, not just men, but women too. It only suits 1/16 of the population. That's why they create intersectionality, single issue voting, mass media, and try to narrow it down. Look how much it took Fox. It took Fox 20 years to launch. Roger Ailes had to fight for decades to get licensing, to get stations to carry it, and in turn, it refined and recreated news, redefined news. For a while, BBC was number one. For a while, CNN was number one. Right now, I couldn't tell you if Fox is number one or not because it keeps fluctuating, but it's often number one. And again, it will never be 100%, and that's the problem. And it's not a problem that Fox isn't 100%. It's a problem that people can't accept that CNN can't be 100% or BBC. They cannot accept that they lose audience to other channels. So they always try to undermine Fox, because in reality, there's only Fox and everyone else. Well, Newsmax and others are coming up. Again, when we allow different personality types to express themselves, when we stop the systemic imbalances in society, whether it be family court or anything else, right? Where the system says, no, you're a man. So when the law is gender neutral, when hiring is gender neutral, yes, the majority of the time men win, but that is merit. A meritocracy. And the universal brotherhood that says, I don't hate Africans, but shouldn't they be in Africa? And yes, the descendants of slaves. Your reparations was a free trip home. I'm sure plenty of people will be glad to give it to you. People are sick of the hate. Whether it's women hating on their husbands because they didn't satisfy them or didn't give them the fur coat, or in modern times, my hair, I want 50 high heels. Why? Because my friend Wendy got 49 pairs. So, I think these are dramas that will never end, but I hope you'll understand why they must be addressed and continue to be addressed. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Please support the channel and support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.